Okay, so this is the last of our videos for this lesson. This is video 6. This is slightly different from what we've been doing, but it's also almost exactly the same. So let me kind of explain myself. What we're doing is we're determining whether or not a trinomial is prime. Now, a prime trinomial is one that you cannot factor. Okay, if it's prime, that means it's in simplest form. If you can factor it, it means it would be, I guess you would call it a composite trinomial. So a prime trinomial is one that when you do it, you don't get easy integer roots. Now later on, we'll talk about something called the quadratic equation, and we'll do some problems with that, and then you realize that there's roots that you can get that are fractional and kind of weird and with square roots and all kinds of wackiness going on. But for this purpose, we are going to call a trinomial prime if we can't factor it with using the methods that we've talked about in the last 2 lessons now. So let's take a look at something like this. So I've got this problem right here, 4r squared minus r plus 7. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at this and we're going to recognize that, okay, I've got a coefficient in front of a, or my coefficient, which is a, is larger than 1. And I know I'm going to have to do this by grouping if it's not prime. So I'm going to do what I always do, which is multiply a times c. So I'm going to go 4 times 7, and I'm going to get 28. And so what I want to look for is 2 factors that when I add them up are going to give me -1. So that means that I'm going to have negative factors, right? So think about that for a second. Does that exist? 2 factors that are both going to be negative where you're going to add them up and get -1? Well, the smallest factor you could get like that would be -2. So I mean, there's no way, but let's go through the motions. So if you have -1 and -28, because remember, it's got to multiply to give you positive 28. So -1, -28 gives you -29. It's just way too big. -2, -14 is -16. -4, -7 gives you -11. And then at that point, you start doubling back and going back. So we don't need to do all those because we know. So we don't have anything that fits this criteria. So to answer this question, you would say 4r squared minus r plus 7 is prime. Okay, let's look at another one. So I get 2x squared plus 3x minus 5. Again, the case of ax squared plus bx plus c, where a is larger than 1. So we're going to multiply a and c together. So we're going to go 2 times -5. Remember, you got to include that sign. All right, so 2 times -5 gives me -10. And I want to see what 2 factors I can find that when I add them up are going to give me positive 3. So if I do -1 and positive 10, that would give me 9. If I reverse where the negatives go, that would give me -9, so that doesn't work. So let's do -2 and 5. Well, -2 plus 5 is 3, and that's what we want. So for this one, we would say, okay, and if it isn't prime, I think they want you to factor it. So we're going to go, all right, well, so let's rewrite this as 2x squared, and then let's, if you look, you've got a 2 and a 5, and you're going to be splitting that up and putting that in place of the 3x. Well, if I put the 2 by the other 2 and the 5 by the other 5, that's going to factor out much nicer. So let's try it that way. And then minus 2x plus 5x minus 5. Looks like we're going to have like an x minus 1 or something going on in here. So we got 2x, you pull that out, you got x minus 1 plus 5, and then x minus 1. So there's our common factor there. So we're going to have x minus 1 as one of our factors, and then you take these 2 components and they make up your other factor. 2x plus 5, multiply it out, make sure it works. 2x squared minus 2x plus 5x minus 5. Simplify it. It works. So this is my finished answer, and we would say it is not prime, because you can simplify it. So that's all there is to this. The hardest part about it is just going to be factoring it, because we're all still a little new to this. So stick with it, and just understand that the concept of prime is when you cannot factor it.